Welcome to the Three Martini Lunch. Grab a stool next to Greg Columbus of Radio America and Jim Garrity of National Review. Three Martinis coming up.
So glad you're with us for the Tuesday edition of the Three Martini Lunch. Hope you had a fantastic Labor Day weekend. I also hope that you found time to listen to Friday's special edition, the Three Martini Lunch. If you missed it, we can tell you now, since the episode's been out for a couple of days, that our special guest on Friday was none other than Curtis Sliwa, the Republican nominee for mayor of New York City. It is a highly entertaining interview, but also, I think, insightful on a number of levels, and Jim has written about it in the Morning Jolt today. And of course, don't forget about yesterday's episode, the Monday, Labor Day episode, where Jim and I each unveil three different, what we would consider unpopular opinions, probably, amongst most members of our audience. So anyway, Jim, hope you had a great weekend, and hope folks definitely make time to catch that Sliwa interview.
I was going to say, those are our unpopular opinions that we recognize are unpopular, that we concede. Everything else, we are just oblivious to the fact that they're unpopular.
Yes, exactly. So let's get into those in just a moment. But first, we're going to talk about dose. Did you know that the liver is the second largest organ in your body? It is responsible for more than 500 functions. But for some reason, liver health doesn't always get the attention it deserves. Well, that changes now because Dose for Your Liver was formulated to cleanse your liver of unwanted elements, aid digestion, and maintain your body's filter.
What does your liver do? Well, it produces and regulates your cholesterol, it stores vitamins and minerals, and it impacts your digestive and metabolic health, amongst many other things. The science-backed formula promotes liver function, aids digestion, eases bloating, and can even boost your energy levels.
Yeah, fantastic stuff. It also will reduce brain fog, give you better sleep, and it tastes good. Support your health with Dose Daily. Save 25% on your first month when you subscribe at dosedaily.co/3ml or enter the code 3ml at checkout. Please note the 25% discount applies only to subscription orders, not one-time purchases. You can cancel anytime, no hassle. That's dosedaily.co/3ml to get 25% off your first monthly subscription with the code 3ML. All right, Jim, since we were just talking about Curtis Sliwa, let's talk about the New York City mayor's race in another light, this time with Zohran Mamdani. He's the Democratic nominee, and according to just about every poll, in fact, every poll, he is the front runner in this race by a decent margin over Andrew Cuomo and then Curtis Sliwa. The New York Times has been interesting in this campaign, Jim. I'm sure you remember just before the primary back in June, the New York Times was freaking out over a possibility of Zohran Mamdani as the nominee, and they were encouraging people to vote for Cuomo while holding their nose, and they were just very, very nervous about an avowed socialist becoming the mayor of New York City. Well, apparently the memo has been received at the New York Times, because now they're singing a very different tune. You point out that in a bizarrely contradictory article entitled "What to Know About Zohran Mamdani and Democratic Socialism," the Times insisted Mamdani was not a socialist. He's a democratic socialist, which means his beliefs are similar to those of socialists, but not exactly the same, unquote. That, quote, the closest Mr. Mamdani gets to socialism is in his belief in treating people more equitably, and that the New York City Democratic Socialists of America describes itself as a branch of the national group, which says it is the largest socialist organization in the country. Mr. Mamdani is a member of both. You then quote The Atlantic, pointing out that these guys made it pretty clear he's a socialist. I don't know what anybody else is trying to accomplish here. Jim, we've talked about it a lot. We've talked about the government-run grocery stores. We've talked about his aversion to private property, wanting to buy up private property and turn it into communes, quoting Marx, wanting to defund the police. I mean, this guy, you don't have to be Sherlock Holmes to find the clues that this guy's a full-blown socialist, if not communist in certain areas. And so is this just a matter of getting on board, the Democrats getting on board with Mamdani, or is it more than that?
Yeah, look, I think, Mamdani is still the favorite in this race. But if there was no indication that the label of socialist, democratic socialist, or let us seize the means of production, but that's quoting Mamdani from like 3 years ago. Now, if he wants to say, oh, I was young and naive again, okay, but dude, that was 3 years ago. That wasn't that long, it's not like you're ripping a bong freshman year at college when you're doing this sort of thing. Well, maybe he was, I don't know. But the point is that it's much more recent than that, right? And so if this was not an issue and there was no sign that this was hurting Mamdani at all, I suspect the New York Times would not have written this article. That there's a vibe of damage control. And unfortunately, I think this says something about the New York Times readership. The gist of the article is, well, if you like socialism, he's definitely a socialist. But if you don't like socialism, he's totally not a socialist, right? Two interesting examples of this. The first is the Atlantic's Michael Powell wrote for the New York Times from 2007 to 2023, right? So that's a long stretch there. And I just figure a guy like that would be inclined to give his old colleagues the benefit of the doubt. And he jumps on Twitter, or X, as Elon would prefer us to call it. And he's just pointing out this article is just ludicrously contradictory and misleading. Among them saying that he's, by the way, when he says socialism is about treating people more equitably. Yeah. This just handed to me. No one in the gulags could be reached for comment. Because they're in the gulags. Do you feel like you're equitably? Everybody's getting the same level of gruel in the work camps. So this is where they say, oh, but true socialism has never been true. If every time you try it, it turns out badly, stop trying it. But he says, his reaction is, say what? Whatever you make of Zohran, he is an insistent socialist. As an assemblyman, he has repeatedly declared himself a DSA cadre responsible to committees of comrades. All right. Now, when I saw that, I was like, okay, what is a cadre candidate? It sounds very sinister and, within the Democratic Socialists of America, which is like the Socialist Party, right? There is a specific meaning to a cadre candidate, right? It means candidates who have become politically active through their engagement with the Democratic Socialists of America, right? Which means that they have come up through the ranks. Whether you want to say they've been indoctrinated, whether you want to say they're true believers, somebody who has been in the DSA since their first moments of interest in political activism. There's no wiggle room there. And in fact, they literally say, our members insist that our candidates identify as Democratic Socialists, not as a purity test, but as an accountability test. Now, you could say it's not a purity test. I'm going to be Edward James Olmos in Miami Vice. Looks pretty pure to me. That is pure, uncut socialism right there, right? And I went over and looking around. I found in Jacobin magazine, the co-chair of the New York City Democratic Socialists of America saying, look, he was deeply involved in other DSA races. He's a well-known entity in the chapter. Quote, you can't disentangle Zohran from DSA at this point, right? So this guy is socialist, right? There's no two ways about it. It's kind of crazy for the New York Times to run around trying to say, well, he's not one of the bad socialists. I leave you with this quote from Grace Mouser, co-chair of the New York City Democratic Socialists of America. Quote, this is a huge opportunity for leftists, not just in New York City or New York State, but really around the world to come in and try to put their ideas about municipal socialism into action, unquote. Folks, these are the stakes in New York City. Curtis Sliwa may not be your cup of tea, but you know what? He's the guy. He's the only option on the right to stop this guy. I'm very glad we were able to give him the spotlight, and hopefully this does some good.
The Times ever explain the difference supposedly between real socialism and democratic socialism? I mean, the way I look at it is it's a socialist running as a Democrat, which is what Bernie did for president. Yeah. It's an independent most of the time. But did they distinguish anything at any point?
It's not hard to find people on the left who say, no, we mean democratic, the nice kind, like you see in Norway. And I've been to Norway a couple of times. It is a very nice country. Taxes are super high. The cost of living is super high. But a lot of people are happy there. But I also point out, they have giant oil and gas revenues from all kinds of offshore drilling, which also is trying to be banned by most folks on the left. So, as long as you've got this giant pile of money spurting out from the ground that you've managed to, collect and make a lot of money off, well, then you can finance a whole bunch of big government programs of people. If you're not, people like that. But if you don't have that, let's say you had, I don't know, hypothetically speaking, like $35 trillion debt or something like that. Well, then no, it's not an option for you because you already have this giant expenditure that you need to take care of. So, and they always say, look, North Korea isn't real socialism. The Soviet Union isn't real socialism. Communist China back in the day isn't real. I mean, it's now somewhat more open to free market as long as you don't, speak out against the government. So socialism, if every time you're trying it, it turns out wrong. It's like a recipe, the cake we baked didn't work out this time, but trust me, this time the recipe is going to work. No, the problem is the recipe. It's right there. So.
No doubt about it. So New York City voters, you got a couple of months to get this right. We'll see if you do. All right, guys, are you not wanting to see socialists in power, whether it's in your local government, state government, national government? Well, if you're worried about that, and I can see why you would be if you live live in New York City, maybe it's time for Caldera to work on those lines on your face. Maybe you just want to look a little younger. Well, whatever the reason, Caldera Lab is here for us, guys. Their high-performance skincare is designed specifically for men, simple, effective, and backed by science.
Caldera Labs uses cutting-edge formulas developed by leading cosmetic chemists who specialize in men's healthcare. They involve rigorous R&D cycles. Every product takes years to develop, test, and perfect. If they don't love it, they're not going to sell it. It uses non-comedogenic formulas. No laughing, no comedogenic. It also means it won't clog your pores. Certified cruelty-free, which means no animal testing ever, and it's plastic neutral. For every product sold, they remove the same amount of plastic from the environment.
I have loved using the cleanser. I also like the other the products. You know, you've got the eye serum, the base layer, and they smell normal. I hate products that make you smell like some guy who should have been at Studio 54 or something like that. You know, it's just weird smells. None of that with Caldera. They get that right in addition to the stuff that makes your skin look better. 100% of men said their skin looks smoother and healthier after using Caldera. So upgrade your skincare with Caldera Lab. Easy, effective, and made for men. Skip the drugstore and try it for yourself. Visit calderalab.com/3ml and use the code 3ml for 20% off your first order. Again, that's calderalab.com/3ml with the code 3ml for 20% off. All right, Jim, on to our second martini now. And the president is expected to make an exciting announcement, the White House says, at 2 p.m. today. And for the left, I'm guessing it's going to be a significant disappointment, not an exciting announcement, because over the weekend, most of the online left was convinced Trump was dead because he hadn't been seen in public in a couple of days. So they just assumed, of course, that he's dead or he's incapacitated. There were rumors about roads being blocked off at Walter Reed. And it is, you know, a bit unusual for the president to go that long without appearing in public. So hopefully he's okay. But there's certainly no evidence that the guy is in some sort of dire medical straits. Be good to see him and confirm that later today. It looked like he went golfing over the weekends, though. So that would seem to put those rumors to rest. But of course, the conspiracy theorists are out there with body double rumors and everything else. And of course, the richest part is that all these people were out there saying Joe Biden was fine all the way up through the debate, and some even after the debate back in 2024. So what do you make of the rapidly expanding conspiracy theory on the left online over the weekend?
Well, I concur with the observation that Donald Trump, never a shy fellow, never a guy who doesn't like he loves to go in front of the cameras and answer questions and go back and forth with reporters. So if he doesn't do that for a 6-day window, that is a little unusual. And it's fair to wonder, is the president under the weather? Is it possibly he's having some procedure done? Is there some reason why he would not be in front of the cameras? Still on Truth Social, now people are debating, is he really writing them, et cetera, et cetera. But completely unnoticed was on Friday, which is right in the middle of this 6-day window, he gave an interview to the Daily Caller in the Oval Office, and they released some excerpts, and this morning the whole thing came out. Now, Greg, I generally like the crew at the Daily Caller. I realize not everybody does, but let's say, whatever you think of them, if they were brought into the Oval Office for an interview with the president, I think they'd notice if he was dead. I think even on their worst days, they'd say, Mr. President, what are you going to do about Iran? And they get no answer. And there are flies buzzing and stuff. Maybe they kind of realize, hey, something. Or if the president had a stroke, or if he was clutching his heart, or if there was any other sign the president was having health issues. So, that would be a sign that, whatever was going on, it was not incapacitating the president. He was capable of doing an interview. Like I said, they only put the full transcript and everything up on Monday, but like they had talked about, we did the interview and released a couple excerpts. So it was, that would be a sign that, there's not that. I think, why is this in the slot of our traditional bad martini? I don't like the idea of the president being omnipresent in our lives. I don't just mean this for this president. I mean Obama. There was a funny thing where Obama in his first term seemed to be in the news every single day, except after a guy tried to blow up one of the flights. Obama was on vacation in Hawaii and did not come out to address the public for 3 days. Like, that's the one time I want to hear from the president. Why is he, why is he hanging around at the Magnum PI estate instead of, actually coming out and telling us what's going on? I would like to say, I'd like to hear from the president, maybe not Joe Biden level, where we're only working from 10 to 4 and once a day, but I kind of like the idea, like the president can take a few days off and the world does not lose its, does not go run around with their hair on fire. this is an indication that if Trump does not appear after a couple of days, people not only think, is the president, maybe the president is sick, has a cold, has a flu, and all that stuff kind of happens. He is 79. He's getting up there in years. It wouldn't be surprising if he needed a day off or two. But the idea that, if we haven't seen him in 2 days, he must be dead. And that this the degree to which this, it's almost like the online left has separation anxiety. What are we going to do without Trump? So.
Right. That's right.
Again, okay, we haven't seen him as of this moment. It's supposed to be 2:00 today, as of this recording. It's supposed to be an announcement at the Pentagon. One rumor going around is that changing it from the Department of Defense to the Department of War. Another one is we're invading Venezuela. And somebody on a text chain that I'm on said, well, I guess this is it for Hegseth. Now, I've seen nothing to indicate that. I'd be surprised if that was the case. And I would point out to everybody, if you're listening to this podcast, you're pretty astute about how politics works. The bigger the news, the harder it is to keep it completely under wraps. And kind of like how they discovered Pluto, not from seeing Pluto, but by seeing how other things reacted to it. God forbid if something ever happened to the president, you would know. You would see people running around Washington. You would see people reacting in a certain way, indicating that something was up, even if you didn't know exactly what was prompting all this. So, my suspicion is that we're going to get today is going to be a fairly mundane announcement, even though they're saying it's a very exciting announcement. And I assume the president is in comparable health to the way he was last week. I don't, we'll see. Maybe we'll be surprised. But at this point, there's no reason to think that the very dramatic scenarios that the left was speculating over the weekend, that there's much to those rumors.
Yeah, and as disturbing as the speculation is, the wish casting that he actually is dead, and then being disappointed when he shows up on the golf course, and you're like, oh, darn, better luck next time. These people are sick. They need to touch grass pretty darn fast. So maybe it's time to call mom, call some friends, just get away from the social media for a bit.
Touch grass, as they say, and probably not the grass you're thinking of, Lefty.
That's right.
Not the Snoop Dogg grass,
But when it comes to the phone, and if you're running a business, you know that every time you miss a call, you're leaving money on the table. And when every customer conversation matters, you need a phone system that keeps up and helps you stay connected. And that's why you need OpenPhone.
OpenPhone is the #1 business phone system that streamlines and scales your customer communications. It works through an app on your phone or computer, so there's no more carrying around 2 phones or having to use a landline. With OpenPhone, your team can share one number and collaborate on customer calls and texts like a shared inbox. That way, any teammate can pick up right where the last person left off, keeping your response times faster than ever.
See why more than 50,000 businesses trust OpenPhone to manage their businesses' calls and texts. OpenPhone is now offering 3 Martini Lunch listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/3ML. That's openphone.com/3ML. And if you have existing numbers with another service, OpenPhone will port them over at no extra charge. OpenPhone, no missed calls, no missed customers. All right, Jim, on to our final martini. Definitely crazy. The Democrats will tell you every single day that they have a chance that they're fighting to save democracy. Democracy is threatened. Democracy is on the line, and they are the ones fighting it. That's the whole gerrymandering fight in Texas and California. And as we've established many times, to them, saving democracy means saving Democratic majorities so they can do what they want. But Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer has been legitimately threatening democracy for the people of the 35th State Senate District in the state for a long time now, and it's going to keep going on for a while longer. But she has finally set a special election in that Senate district, which she knew there would be a vacancy on Election Day last year. That's November, because the state senator ran for Congress and won. And so early last year, January 3rd, Kristen McDonald Rivet, I don't know how you say that, got sworn into Congress, and there's been a vacancy in that state Senate seat ever since. It's believed to be a pretty competitive district, which is why Republicans think Whitmer refuses to hold a special election, because right now the Democrats hold a 19-18 majority in the chamber, and a GOP victory could give Republicans the ability to block Democratic policy in Whitmer's final months as governor, since she is term limited. So Whitmer, until just the last couple of days, wouldn't call a special election at all, basically waiting 8 months. And now the primary is set for February 3rd, 2026. The general election is May 5th, according to the governor's office, which means she's taking 18 months from knowing that this seat was going to be open from election day 2024 to actually filling it. That's dereliction of duty.
That is, look, democracy dies in darkness, except when Gretchen Whitmer comes along with a chainsaw and murders it in broad daylight with everybody watching. Earlier in the year, I'd written a column in the Post critical of Greg Abbott. Congressman Sylvester Turner died March 5th, right? Now, Texas state law doesn't specify a deadline for a governor to order a special election. It's entirely normal to say, well, in order to avoid an extra expense, we want it to line up with some other election that's scheduled in that district. Well, Texas had local elections on May 3rd. It had runoffs if you needed them. We're going to be on June 7th. So theoretically, you could have done then. Instead, Abbott set November 4th as a special election date, meaning that the district, and this is around Houston, was going to have nobody for like the better part of a year. Not great. I think they could have had it earlier. By comparison, Arizona, Representative Raul Grijalva died 1 week after Turner. Primary was held July 15th. General election is going to be September 23rd, right? So you get a little bit closer to that. We have Jerry Connolly died, where people are voting in September. Most of the time, you can get it within a couple of months. There's kind of this broad bipartisan consensus that you generally don't want to keep people without a representative for a long stretch. And oh, by the way, Greg, back in 2023, not one but two Michigan state House members ran for mayor and won. Now, guess how long it took Whitmer to announce the special election dates?
Not as long as this one.
2 weeks. 2 weeks.
So she can do it.
So she can do it fast when she wants to. It's very hard. Oh, I totally forgot about that empty state Senate seat. I got, there's a lot of stuff on my desk and it fell off. It fell behind. No, none of that stuff is there. Look, this is the sort of thing, Greg, that should make Gretchen Whitmer afraid to show her face in public. Now, she kind of did that in the Oval Office with Trump a few months ago, but really, this is why she should be embarrassed. And it's good that we have it. It's ludicrous to keep a district unrepresented for 18 months. I think you can wrap Greg Abbott on the knuckles for how long it's taken that state house.
Yes, definitely.
But he looks like he's Speedy Gonzalez compared to what Whitmer's. A year and a half. There's no way you can't tell me politics isn't part of it. And we keep being told Trump is a threat to democracy. MAGA is a threat to democracy. Your next door neighbor is a threat to democracy. But somebody not holding an election for a year and a half. Oh, that's no big deal. We can live. No worries.
Unbelievable. Yeah, it sounds like Glenn Youngkin gets points for swiftest turnaround, even though that's not an election result that's probably going to go the way he wants. But he's doing his job, which is better.
None of these are particularly competitive, at least in the House races. No one who's keeled over this year has been a particularly competitive, or those who went on to Trump's cabinet in the case of Mike Waltz.
Yeah. So it'll probably work out better for Republicans that it's not on the general election day because Republicans might be more motivated to turn out, but not looking good for Gretchen Whitmer. And by the way, I haven't heard any buzz for her for president. She was one of the names being really floated out there even last year when Biden hit the bricks and so forth. But she's not getting any oxygen right now because of Newsom and a couple of others. These other guys aren't any better, but the fact that her star seems to be fading nationally is not exactly bringing tears to my eyes.
Yeah, couldn't happen to a nicer person.
Exactly. So
they in the end, Greg, they couldn't make Gretch happen. For all the Mean Girls fans out there.
Exactly right. So as we wait for the president's 2:00 press conference where he will walk out and say, "Not dead, very much alive. Better luck next time." Anyway, we'll find out what he actually says, assuming he is fine. Jim, have a great day. See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow, Greg.
Jim Garrity, National Review. I'm Greg Corombos of Radio America. Thanks for being with us today. Please be sure to subscribe to the 3 Martini Lunch if you don't already, and tell your friends about us as well. We'd love to have them listening. Thanks also for your 5-star ratings and your kind reviews. Please keep those coming. Get us on your home devices. All you have to say is play 3 Martini Lunch podcast. Follow us both on X. He's at Jim Garrity. I'm at Greg Corombos. Have a terrific Tuesday. Join us again Wednesday for the next 3 Martini Lunch.